Good morning, ladies and gents. Today, we're gonna kind of pick up where we left off yesterday. Get some more stats in, maybe work with that character window a little further. Just make sure that it's ready for that moment when we decide to add in character creation, which is kind of a big thing. We need to make sure that it can handle level up procedures. We also need to make sure that it updates whenever you change something. If you put on or take off a necklace of +1 strength, it should probably show up under your stats. Also, maybe having another row, having the final stat, and then also having the bonuses, just so that we know what's coming from where. That might be incredibly helpful, because that's something that most RPGs don't take the time to actually tell you. And some people I know are completely just gaga over having stats everywhere. So in this case, what I'm kind of tempted to do is take all of these numbers, excuse me, and take the numbers and put another set of numbers next to them that happens to be their bonuses. And if you want to show bonuses, you can then say, oh, cool, here's plus this, minus this, mouse over it, get a window that says here's where everything's coming from, that kind of stuff. So let's see. Let us see. Or as Day 9 would say, let us divine. Also, obviously, we have the labels, we have the stats. It would not be beyond us to probably, maybe, handle the, oh, that moves the camera. Okay, I was kind of hoping it would move other things, but there we go. Yeah, that should be good. So we have stats, and then we have the bonuses next to them. And the bonuses can be existent or non-existent based on a whole bunch of values. I can't help but notice that these are also all kinds of out of place. So I'm just going to quickly realign these. And hola, Whiteland, ¿cómo estás? That's about all the Spanish I speak. Unfortunately, my ability to really speak other languages is dulled by the amount of free time I currently have. As much as I would love to learn more languages, I just don't have the time. These bonus. Just got to do a lot of name changes. A lot. Not the end of the world, just has to happen. Yeah. Thus is the world of UI, where lots of things get nice long names, so you remember how to reference them later. Kind of makes me wish I had my stats inside some kind of array, if only because being able to access them in an array-like fashion would let me have for loops and other shiny things that would make life a little easier, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. And what we're going to do, pretty simple stuff. We are going to take all the bonuses, and first off, we're going to put it in the right spot, because it looks like the bonuses, there we go. It looked like it wanted to put them under this title background. That's not where we want things. So, bonuses go there. And then we just add a little checkbox. Just a happy little checkbox. Oh, that's what I forgot on Monday. I forgot to watch my Bob Ross. Need my fix. Toggle, yeah. I do wish they'd name it checkbox sometimes, but whatever. I can survive. I can get by, given what I know. Let's see, we need to make this whole thing larger, because that is a tiny little checkbox, and I am sorry, but that is not how I roll in terms of checkboxes. Gotta get that sucker large and sizable. Same with the checkbox underneath. I fixed that. Cool. The label can shift a little bit, and also I can't help but also notice that the check mark is not anywhere near center in this thing. I mean, look at that. It looks offset by a significant amount. It's like they lined it up that way on purpose, which kind of ticks me off. Not a ton, but just a little. Ah, man, I want the two side by side, not split apart like this. I don't understand why this is happening. Oh, here's our offset. Here's our problem. There we go. Much better. And now, if we center this, that looks nice. No, I want the whole thing. This is going to be our bonus toggle. And it's going to be pretty simple. When you press the bonus toggle, okay, maybe that is a little too large now that I see it set up next to everything else. Let's see if we can fix this. Very quick lag. There we go. Then the label. Oh, I see. The text keys off the entire thing. So, in order to have the text work, there we go. To have it say show bonuses, whoop, I keep grabbing one element inside of it. Thanks, Ardog. Ardogerndia? Dogerndia. Dogerndia? I'm terrible with Twitch names, and if you need proof, well, I just gave it to you. Alright, so show bonuses, and currently it's checked. It shouldn't be checked by default, and the bonuses themselves should not be checked by default. Let's see if we can do this on value changed and see if this works for us. What I want is the bonuses set active. Interesting. I've never actually done something like that. I don't use their dynamic functionality a ton, so it's kind of neat to see it, honestly. I kind of want to try it out just to see and make sure that it works, because honestly, part of me doesn't trust that it will work. No, but there it is. Look at that. That is really cool. Neat. Okay, so what else has to go on here? Well, the obvious thing that has to go on here is that we need to actually fill it in with values. And also we need to find a place for skills, because that's kind of terrifying to know that we don't have a skill set ready. If we look at our character window again, you'll see that we kind of have the room for it here. I'm not sure I want an entire page of just numbers and more numbers, but at the same time, part of me does want the skills to go somewhere near the stats, and this is kind of a decent spot. So I'm kind of going back and forth on the idea of what I really want to do here. Other information here that we need, or that we could at least show off. Let's see here. I actually want to look at my character class. Character and eventually player character, because both of these are fairly relevant to the nature of the stats. Up late last night watching Buffy. Joss Whedon makes himself a damn good TV show. A little slow at times, I gotta say, but when it picks up, boy does it pick up. Okay. So, between that and all the House I've been watching, I feel like a bit of a junkie. I normally don't watch this much television or Netflix, I guess, in this case. But recently it's just kind of been a nice way to turn my brain off at the end of a long day. You do a server deployment, you don't exactly feel like coming home and programming more, I'll tell you that. Let's see here. Character information is pretty straightforward. So we have our stats. Max health and current health, these are things that should end up in here. So let's get them tagged in. Since we're here, doing crazy things. And this will just be the health label. Because remember, we need to pretty much label everything. If any number sits here without a label, people are going to wonder what the heck is up. And in our case, it's just kind of nice to have numbers and other things floating around. Alright, so, and because, let's see, I'm going to turn on the bonuses just so I know where their text ends, so I don't kind of overwrite or bump into anything. Let's put health at the halfway point. And we're going to need a couple pieces here. Did it not? It didn't keep my... Interesting. It didn't want to keep my my name for it. That's fine. Alright, and something to keep in mind whenever we work on text and stuff is that the alignment matters quite a bit. We want the alignment in such a way that whenever your text is in place, that it looks like it matches where it should. Otherwise, you end up with some weird spacing, and we really want to make sure that, regardless of the spacing, that the text always looks fine. So, for example, we have our health label, and then we have the current health. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line these up right next to each other. And we're going to leave a little space, but... Actually, what I'm going to try and do, and this might be stupid, let's left align that. And see if we can do this. Had a weird idea, gonna try it out. There we go. Current health, and then maximum health. I'll just call it max for short. Maximum and I get on very well. We're on first name basis. Maximum health. And obviously stamina is kind of an always thing. I'm gonna leave the mana stuff off for the spell page, if only because we really don't need any of that information on the stats page if we're just gonna recreate it within the spell page. So this is our stamina label. Stamina. Blah. Need to use the right words, of course. I've also been calling it energy. Kind of bounce back and forth on that one. I like energy because it's shorter, but it also makes me think of like super energy, or, you know, just, I don't know, it doesn't seem like the perfect term. Stamina seems to be, at least in my head, a much better approximation of what this actually is, which is your ability to actually perform grueling tasks over a long period of time. Also, the label is wrong. So let's fix that. Stamina. And of course, because it's a longer word, we have to do a little bit of alignment here. There we go. And finally, for the last step of our bit of alignment that has to happen here, just gonna realign these. There we go. Cool. What other information can we pack into this monster? Because, you know, we don't have enough numbers on the screen already, so what else? The amount of experience, that would definitely be nice. I have a bad feeling that's going to be even longer. Yep, thought so. I might have to shift everything here over by more than a little bit. There we go. And let's shift this just slightly, just to get it out of the way, in case some of those bonuses get huge. I'm kind of happier having the number be further over, and also, let's get rid of this unnecessary extra text in here. Health, stamina, experience, all basic RPG stuff. I don't see any more information from character. Player character obviously might have more stuff. We could show off conditions, but conditions already appear in the UI, so I'm not too worried about those, honestly. Portraits, class type. Class type, maybe. In fact, let's just do that, since we're here and all of this is sitting in front of us. We may as well put the obvious information here. So right under character name. And we have to shrink the font just so it fits inside. Not the end of the world, but we'll take a little bit of futzing to get that in there. Yeah, character name and class name. I like having those two followed by the stats and experience and all that good stuff right there. I'm just going to call it class. Just because. And the experience label, yeah, all of this is kind of in the right spot. Let's see, what else? I can actually turn off bonuses since I have a fair idea of where things are now. Let's see here. Any other information? So class type, great. Not really. Aside from skills, this is really the only other thing that I care about right now, and even that is not all that exciting. So let's just get this thing to fill itself in, and that should do the trick. We should have a completed stats page at that point. And I know today's not terribly interesting, we're just doing a lot of UI stuff, filling in details, getting stuff on the window just so it shows up. But guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to kind of answer what I can, either as somebody who's working on this game specifically, or somebody who just makes games in general. I do it for my full-time job, although recently I've been doing a lot of server work, but still, if you guys have questions about any of that, please feel free. Ask away. Yeah, I can't think of anything else right now for that window. Let's find the actual character window class. And we do have the character already. So all of this information inside of the start method pretty much just needs to find its way in. So, first things first, we're going to get the stats root. Because that is a little bit down in the hierarchy. It's not the end of the world, but you'll notice it's under background and then stats page, so we can't just go digging for it every time. Alright, so let's see. Basic, easiest stuff, right? Character name. Which I just called name. And I think, yeah, I definitely have Unity Engine.ui as a namespace. This is going to be a lot of one-off code, a lot of very simple stuff that's not going to be too exciting, but we still have to get this stuff done. Health, stamina, experience. Okay. Health, crap. Actually, let's go with class name. I do have class names in here. Some of them happen to have, you know what, even if they happen to have 2 words and they're smashed together, I don't really care. Character.class type.toString, because I don't particularly care about the messiness of it. Is this a basic D&D crawler? Kinda, sorta, yeah. I am definitely taking some mechanics from D&D, but it's not going to be purely Dungeons & Dragons, mostly because I'm not a fan of some of the things that the D20 system does. There's just some stuff that it kind of, as much as I love 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, is still a little bit needing attention. And so what I'm doing is I'm essentially taking the parts I like from a couple different systems. I'm taking a tri-stat system and moving it towards a D20 system. I'm doing a lot of modifications to how dice rolls work. D20 is a very linear, flat line. You spend a lot of time either missing, right? If you think about rolling a random D20 and then adding bonuses and doing things, it's always a very set chance. And what I'm looking for is a bell curve here. We want the middle of the road to be the most common, and then for it to get less common on the edges. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for here. If you're going to hit something, you're normally going to hit it. If you're not going to hit something, it might take some time to get a couple good swings in. So I want to try this system out. Obviously, if this doesn't work out, if the gameplay doesn't feel right, that's terrifying, and then I'd have to redo it. But so far, the combats felt pretty good and straightforward. So I'm not terribly worried about a lot of the stuff in terms of the dice system, because the dice system seems to be checking out so far. Let's see, current health. So there are going to be a few pieces of this UI that don't update terribly often, and that's something I'm not too worried about, honestly. If you drink a health potion midway through and it shows a wrong number, right now I don't care. We will eventually go back and fix that, but for now I'm not worried enough that I'm going to go in and meticulously change every variable every time it changes. I'm almost tempted to make a helper function for myself because there is so much text in here that it feels almost kind of silly to not. Let's see here. We have the root element, we need the string with the element name, and then we have the I just want to make this a little easier for myself. Make it a little more obvious what's going on. Here's the root element. Here's the element name. There's the value. Great. So now I can do this. Let's see, what's the next one? Class. Let's just fix this up real quick. You'll notice how we took this kind of somewhat menial task and have employed the use of a helper to kind of clean up some of this code for us. Not only is the code shorter, there's a lot less repetition, saves us from doing anything silly like accidentally mistyping something for the most part. And because we have so many text elements, I really don't mind doing this kind of information set. In fact, I'm almost tempted to do something like create a dictionary and then just iterate through the elements of the dictionary and just set things in place using that. At the same time, that wouldn't exactly save me any code. In fact, that might make things messier, so I don't really want to do that in the end. Now there's something I don't like. You'll notice I just typed in current stamina, but the variable name is energy. That's something I'm really not a fan of, having the mismatch between variable and name. I'm probably going to go back and fix that at some point very soon. Oh, experience is just a label. Why don't we tack a little more information on here real quick. Center this in more than one way. Cool. Just needed a little extra experience here, or a little extra experience, a little extra information. And this is some pieces of information we've actually not been able to see before, which is kind of cool, to have things that clearly existed on the character, and that we couldn't see or handle until now, is actually really neat. I think a power nap is in my future. Since I'm not driving to work today, maybe I'll take good advantage of that. Although my poor co-worker, I always feel bad falling asleep when someone else is driving, because I feel like if I'm a passenger, I should be a good passenger and have, I don't know, either a conversation or be able to help keep the driver awake, something like that. Also, I keep typing in this. This beginning is completely the same every single time. So there's no need for me to keep typing it over and over. Like, some of this, there's a good reason I keep typing it. But when I do that, that speeds me up a fair bit. And so I don't really see any need to not be copying and pasting that part every single time. Now I'm getting back into the swing of things, because I remember my stats names fairly well. I at least remember them well enough to keep typing them out here while I'm talking. And also knowledge, reasoning, and resolve. Okay, maybe I don't remember them all perfectly, but we're pretty close. And then we have Allure, which is our social power stat. That's the one thing I do like about this system so far that I've been able to come up with, is that my ability to pretty much look at any stat and understand what it contributes towards is, I think, really powerful. I don't know if that's going to be something that is going to be helpful in the game, especially some of these social stats. I'm a little worried about their usefulness. I've got a lot of physical skills. I've got a lot of mental skills. I've got a lot of things that key off of both of those. But social is a different experience, and I want to make sure that I use the social stats. So the question then becomes, what are the social stats going to do? Up until now, I haven't really had many ideas, but a couple nights ago I came up with the ability to badger somebody around, or use Allure in a pure social pressure kind of way, where I can apply social, essentially, force against you, whether it's using my looks, or whether it's using something like my natural, like, good looks to ask you for something, or even just my dominating presence, as opposed to charisma, where you're able to kind of lie and get pieces of information out of somebody that you might not be able to get otherwise. Stuff like that is really what I see Allure and Charisma being used for, which means I need a lot of dialogue options, and I need a lot of information to be available should somebody choose to have a character that's leveled up in those stats. Otherwise, it'll just be a waste. A player will put stats into that and be like, yeah, I want to, social my way through a lot of this game, only to find out that social is not that strong of a stat, and then it just kind of sucks to be that player. Cool. So you'll notice, once again, stamina isn't updating as I walk around, but if I close and reopen it, you can see it's here. We've got all of our stats filled in. We have no experience. Let's see if we can maybe get in a small fight. Hey, that's a actually decently small fight. I can appreciate the small size of this fight. And I'm just gonna demolish our targets for the best that I can. Also, coming up on the list too is that I'd like to have some kind of sound effects start to find their way into the game. The game feels strangely empty for the most part, and I want to make sure that every step of the way there is an effect for everything. So from pressing buttons to, every spell should have some kind of effect attached to it. I just want to make sure that everything has some kind of effect on the world, so to speak. We want to make sure that the player feels like every action has some kind of reaction to it, whether it be the noise that the bat makes when it's screeching, to the sound of people taking damage, to the sound of your own weapons hitting monsters. There's all kinds of stuff that needs sound effects, and it just adds to the world when you have them. Hello there, Lord Fritus. Fritus? Anyway, so Jed, yes, it is in 3D. Will the game be randomly generated? No, I've been doing so much random generation that I'm tempted to do something more static so that I can tell a better story. The biggest issues I've always had with, whoops, with telling stories has been that when you do it in a randomly generated world, you really have to spend a lot of time and a lot of attention on something like that. And I don't exactly have the time to be doing that. I'd like to get this game out at some point, and so that just means just not worrying about random generation. As much as I might like to, I just really can't be bothered since I want to finish a game. Like, that is the biggest goal here, is not just to make, but to finish a game. And I want to do as much of it on stream as possible. It may or may not happen that way, but I definitely would like to do a lot of this on stream if I can. It's pronounced Freetuz. Oh, okay. Lord Freetuz. Huh. Interesting. Interesting pronunciation versus spelling. I'll definitely keep that in mind, though. Cleric, you need to be healing people. Like, specifically the mage in the back does not have much health left. So let's cast that on him, and you get to fireball there. So yeah, there are definitely plans for a lot of things, but as much as there are plans for a lot of cool features, randomly generated stuff is not one of them. My last title that I tried to work on was randomly generated. I spent, I want to say, the better part of a couple months alone on just generating terrain, and interesting terrain at that. And I'm not entirely convinced that that was the best road to go down sometimes. There we go. Okay. So, as we kill things, I am noticing that it's not prompting for the... oh, no, there it goes. We found gold. We got experience. Yay! And there's our experience. Everybody has 36, because we've all been surviving fights, which is great. Oh, boy. Okay. Huh. Oh, I see. Okay, that's where that pronunciation comes from. The EU in French. Is that... huh. Oh. I've always been interested in languages, and I do wish I had more time. I actually spent a decent amount of time working on the Korean alphabet. I kind of wonder how much of that I remember at this point. I remember what the vowels mostly look like, and I know a decent number of consonants, but I'm not actually entirely certain I remember all of it anymore. I should probably go back and review that just to see if I can make that stick. I'd be really happy if I could get something like that to stick around in my head. If only because it would make learning Korean later in life that much easier. Okay, so... Korean's nice, though. Because Korean is an engineered language, and it's a more modern engineered language, the big thing about it is it's made for learnability. And so a lot of control of that language is the fact that you can look at a word, and based purely on the letters that you see, you can at least say the word if you understand the pronunciation rules. And the pronunciation rules are at most 2 rules per letter for the most part. There's a couple weird ones that have some exceptions, but usually that's only because modern Korean has stepped away from the original engineering a teensy bit, mostly just because of slang and how people talk in Korea these days, the same way that American English and British English sound very different, even though they obviously came from the same origin point. So to have that in mind, you kind of... it's interesting to see how Korean is built, and then since they built it a certain way, it's very nice to... it's very nice and easy to speak. I don't know so much about learning words and spending time on vocabulary, because I didn't get to that point, unfortunately. So yeah. Seem like I know a bit or two about geography. Country sits on top of Germany. I don't know, are you in a sky fortress above Germany? Oh, Denmark. Okay. That works. I did not know that. I do like, I pride myself on the fact that I understand the difference between the UK and Great Britain and England. That's nice. Because the number of people who I hear get those incorrect or use England as a synonym for the UK is kind of mind-boggling at times. Anyway, so back to game. I am running low on time. My ride is going to be here somewhat shortly, but things that we want to start in on next. Character creation is coming right up. That's probably going to be one of the next big things that we work on, which means that we need two things. We need a non-game state, which is not something I've developed at this point, right? Everything is in-game so far. If you look at every system here, there is always a party and party UI in the scene somewhere. We need a scene where that is not the case, so that we can generate characters, save those characters to a file somewhere, and once we've got them saved to file, we need to be able to load them in as well, so that as we load characters into place, we then are able to have a customized character set that's not just our own debug characters, because that's all we really have right now is all these characters that are currently in place, all the default values come literally straight out of Unity, and that's not where we want those values to come from. We honestly would probably like some kind of JSON configuration that will eventually encrypt so that the player can have it read and written into memory without cheating. Because there is, as much as I don't normally like to stop people from opening up their save file and mucking with it, in a single player game of this sort, it's not terribly exciting to be able to do that. So putting a basic countermeasure into place, nothing too crazy, but just a basic countermeasure should be enough to stop anyone from doing anything too stupid. We'll at least make it take a significant amount of work to cheat, so that everybody playing our game doesn't just do it because it's like a text file sitting right in front of them. So that's on the list. Let's see. I did mean to do some research today before I hopped off. I'm curious whether I can do texture masking in Unity. I don't actually know if that's the case. I should probably put Unity in here. Essentially, the idea is that, do I have a good example in front of me? Maybe. Maybe, sort of, kind of. Oh, I didn't realize the game was running. The idea being that spots on the ground, let's see. Okay, so let's look at this for a moment. Spots on the ground where the texture is high should cover up spots on the ground where the texture is low. Now, this isn't too bad. This is actually a decent blend, and I don't mind this at all. This is a pretty clean blend, and it looks decent pretty much everywhere. When you start to zoom out, yeah, you can definitely see the tiling going on, but at some point I hope to also do a lot of grass rendering, so that should take care of that. What's texture masking? Texture masking is a technique wherein you essentially tell a texture, do or don't draw here, based on another texture as input. So for example, if I wanted to draw somebody's portrait inside of a picture frame, you'd draw the picture frame, and then you would say, using the picture frame as a mask, draw the person's face here. And when it draws the face over the picture frame, if the picture frame's alpha is 0 somewhere, it won't draw the person's face in that square. So the person's face will perfectly match the circle of the picture frame. And that way, it lets you very quickly and very easily control that. So it's like an alpha matte? Kind of, yeah. It's pretty much like an alpha channel, but it's an alpha channel that's dictated by a different texture. Excuse me. Whew. So the idea would be in spots where the texture gets close here, instead of having it just fade from one to the next, we'd have some of the grass overlapping on the edges, make it look a little bit more custom instead of this blend. Because as nice as the blending looks, you can see that the edge is very uniform, and we can do this to make the edge a little less uniform. Obviously, that's something I have to do research on. I don't actually know whether or not it's a possibility even. And I want to see if I can find an example real quick. Because honestly, there are a lot of cool things that one can do with it. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that we're paying attention to the stuff that matters. So in our case, what matters is actually getting gameplay and actually getting story. Because I can always come back and make things prettier after the fact. So honestly, I probably should forget about terrain masking for now, if only just to keep my eyes on the prize. And with the prize being, honestly, finishing game. Where's the sun? Is it really that difficult and indistinct at the moment? I'm guessing it's here in this white blob somewhere, and the subsurface scattering is hiding it. Skydome. Interesting. Okay, well, I'll have to find it or fight with it some other time. Yeah, based on the angle of everything, I'd say that the sun is somewhere here, but I can't really tell you off the top of my head. Also, I want to get some water in. This valley, while it looks decent, looks kind of terrible without water running through it. So I'd like some kind of water. Once again, graphical, but that at least fills in some of the terrain and tells you why you can't walk through this area a little clearer, especially when I want the player to start traveling off either away from the river or to start traveling over and to cross it. Which, that might be nice, right? Having a good landmark like a bridge is great for player navigational skills. You can use a vertex painting shader. You can use the color channel to subtract from an alpha blend mask. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. That sounds like a really neat usage of a vertex shader. Alright guys, I am unfortunately out of time. I do have to get going. Thank you very much for joining me. If you haven't done it yet, hit the follow button in the corner. I will be posting up today, hopefully, all the videos from the last 2 days. I've got 3 videos. I did a late night stream yesterday morning and now this morning that I have to post. Those are going to be posted to the YouTube link below. Also, if you want, you can follow my Twitter account. I tend to announce when I am and am not doing streams if I happen to have something like a cold or if I don't sleep for a couple days and need to catch up. I tend to post it there. I also sometimes will post when I do extra streams there as well, although I think last time I just kind of said, forget it, I'm just going to stream, and didn't post anything. So we'll see. Either way, thanks again, guys, very much. I know some of you have probably hit the follow button. Unfortunately, my phone has a giant spider-like crack across the front of the screen, so I don't have it on me to say thank you to everybody who followed just now, but I do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll be back online tomorrow, so I'll see you then. Take care. Bye.